Michigan for a special CNN Democratic presidential debate. I'm Anderson Cooper. I want to welcome our viewers in the United States and around the world. Tonight's debate will be seen on CNN, CNN International, CNN en Español, by American soldiers, sailors, and airmen on the American Forces Network and nationwide on the Westwood One radio network. And now we want to welcome the Democratic candidates for President of the United States. Please welcome Senator Bernie Sanders of Vermont. Please welcome former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton. Ladies and gentlemen, the Democratic candidates for President of the United States. Before we begin tonight, we want to take a moment to remember former First Lady Nancy Reagan. As you probably know, she passed away this morning at the age of 94. Her grace and elegance in the White House, her deep love for President Reagan, and her strength and advocacy in the fight against Alzheimer's and drug abuse will always be remembered. We'd like to pause for a moment of silence in honor of Mrs. Reagan. And now, will you please rise for our national anthem, performed by the Flint Citywide Choir, conducted by Darnell Ishmael. Our thanks to the First Citywide Choir. Candidates, please take your positions behind the podium. Before we begin, as the candidates take their positions, I just want to set out some ground rules. As moderators, I'll ask questions, I'll ask follow-ups, and guide the discussion. The candidates will have 1 minute and 15 seconds to answer questions. They'll have 30 seconds for follow-ups. CNN's Don Lemon will join me in the questioning, as will members of our audience here tonight. The members of our audience are Democrats and independents from Flint and elsewhere in Michigan. We've reviewed their questions just so they don't overlap. Now, we've come to Flint because this is a city in crisis, a city where, as you probably know, the tap water is toxic. Public servants, public institutions not only failed to prevent the crisis, their decisions created this crisis. The state of Michigan, in an effort to save money, switched Flint's water source to a cheaper but riskier alternative, the Flint River. Safeguards were ignored. That river water corroded residential pipes, and for nearly 2 years, lead leaked into the water used in people's homes. Now, for much of that time, the state downplayed the danger, even in the face of growing complaints and physical evidence. For 100 days, the federal government knew about it, and yet, in all that time, nobody told the people of Flint. They bathed in the water, they drank it, and so did their kids. Even today, lead is still present in some of the water. Tonight, the Democratic candidates are here to answer questions about what they would do for Flint, as well as about other issues facing the country right now. Each candidate has 1 minute for an opening statement. Senator Sanders is first. We begin with him. Senator Sanders.
Anderson, thank you very much. Over the last several weeks, I had the opportunity to meet with a number of residents of Flint, had a town meeting in Flint, and I have to tell you, what I heard and what I saw literally shattered me, and it was beyond belief that children in Flint, Michigan, in the United States of America in the year 2016 are being poisoned. That is clearly not what this country should be about. As Anderson indicated, there's a lot of blame to go around. And one of the points that I have made is that I believe the governor of this state should understand that his dereliction of duty was irresponsible. He should resign. But more importantly, what is happening in Flint to a lesser degree is happening throughout this country. In recent years, we have seen a proliferation of millionaires and billionaires, an increase in income and wealth inequality, and all over this country. Middle-class families are struggling, cities and towns are struggling in order to provide basic services. Among many other things, we need to rebuild our crumbling infrastructure, our water systems, our wastewater plants, our roads, and our bridges. The wealthiest country in the history of the world has got to get its priorities right, take care of the people, no more tax breaks for billionaires.
Thank you, Senator. Secretary Clinton.
Well, I'll start by saying amen to that. We are here in Flint. I'm very grateful that my request that we hold this debate be held here so we can continue to shine a very bright spotlight on what has happened in this city. I agree. The governor should resign or be recalled, and we should support the efforts of citizens attempting to achieve that. But that is not enough. We have to focus on what must be done to help the people of Flint. I support 100% the efforts by your senators and members of Congress to get the money from the federal government in order to begin the work that must occur to fix the infrastructure. The state should also be sending money immediately to help this city. I know the state of Michigan has a rainy day fund for emergencies. What is more important than the health and well-being of the people, particularly children? It is raining lead in Flint, and the state is derelict in not coming forward with the money that is required.
Secretary Clinton.
And we'll get to what we need to do to help the children and the people when I have a little more time, because that's just as important as fixing the pipes.
We're going to have a lot of time for that. We want to begin tonight with the people of Flint themselves. This is Mickey Wade. She's a public housing program manager and the mother of 2 kids. She says she's currently undecided and has a question that both of you will be able to weigh in on. Ms. Wade?
The water has impacted our lives in such a way that living comfortably in our home isn't the same anymore. The constant drives to pick up water just so my children can wash their hair, to wash our fruits and vegetables, and to brush our teeth is incredibly difficult. Once the pipes are replaced, I'm not for sure if I will be comfortable ever drinking the water. If elected president, what course will you take to regain my trust in the government?
Secretary Clinton, we'll begin with you.
Well, Nikki, it's a very fair question because your government at all levels have let you and your children and the people of Flint down. So I think there are several things. All the repair work that is being done, and Mayor Weaver announced a program that we support to begin to help train people in Flint to be able to do some of this work, to distribute the water. Everything that is done has to be triple checked to regain your trust and to hold those who are responsible for fixing the pipes and delivering the clean water, which, as you said, you bathe in it, you drink it, you wash food in it, you do everything with it. Every one of us should have to just run through in our minds how we use water every single day to understand the pressures and the real pain that families are going through. So I will make sure as president that I double and triple check. I will work with elected officials who I trust, like your mayor, like your senators, like your member of Congress, so that we can assure you that when it's fixed, you can trust it. You deserve nothing less.
Secretary Clinton, let me follow up with you on that. The people here, they still can't drink the water in their own homes, as you well know. They can't bathe their kids in the water here, and they are desperate for accountability and specifics. As president, can you give any specific about what you could do if you were president right now that would make Ms. Wade's life better and life better for people here?
Well, I support what President Obama is doing. He called for and got accountability from officials at the EPA, who should have done more to make sure the state was doing its job. He has expanded Medicaid to begin the process of helping kids, particularly, get the health care they need. He's also ordered that there be a Head Start program. I support that. When it comes to the water itself, we are supporting a program that Mayor Weaver announced today, Flint Water Works, to actually pay people in Flint, not outsiders, people here, to deliver the water while we're fixing the pipes. And I would do even more of that. As president, you know, what we were able to put together was a beginning. As president, I would concentrate resources on this city for economic development, for more jobs, as we fix the water and provide the health and education interventions that children need.
Senator Sanders, for Ms. Wade, specific?
What is going on is a disgrace beyond belief. As President of the United States, this is what I would do. Is if local government does not have the resources, if state government, for whatever reason, refuses to act, children in America should not be poisoned. Federal government comes in, federal government acts. What is absolutely incredible to me is that water rates have soared in Flint. You are paying 3 times more for poison water than I'm paying in Burlington, Vermont for clean water. First thing you do is you say people are not paying a water bill for poisoned water. And that is retroactive. Second of all, to ease anxiety, CDC has got to come in here and examine every child and adult in this community in terms of the amount of lead they may have. Thirdly, in the wealthiest country in the history of the world, we have got to rebuild our crumbling infrastructure, our water systems. I've got a bill for $1 trillion, creates 13 million jobs, rebuilding Flint, Michigan, and communities all over this country.
Thank you, Senator. We're going to have more on infrastructure shortly, but I want to follow up with you. This crisis in Flint, as you know, as everybody in this room knows, was created by the government. Your policies are about expanding government. Why should people from Flint trust that more government is the answer?
Well, that's a good point, Anderson. I suppose they can trust the corporations who have destroyed Flint by a disastrous trade policy, which have allowed them to shut down plants in Flint and move to China and Mexico. We could trust them, I'm sure. Or maybe, you know, maybe, Anderson, tell you what, maybe we should let Wall Street come in and run the city of Flint, because we know their honesty and integrity has done so much for the American people. Look, we live in a democracy, And I'm not the last person to deny the government is failing in many respects. But at the end of the day, I will trust the people to create a government that works for them rather than Wall Street or corporate America.
Secretary Clinton, you've now both called for the governor to resign. I believe that's new for you. Previously, you had not called for that, but you're calling for that tonight. It's easy to blame the Republican governor, Rick Snyder, but the federal government also dropped the ball here. According to Section 1414 of the Safe Drinking Water Act, the EPA has to step in and take action when a state is informed about water problems and doesn't do anything for 30 days, as the state here didn't do. The EPA knew for months and months, never warned the people of Flint not to drink the water. As president, would you fire the head of the EPA?
Well, I think that the people here in the region who knew about this and failed to follow what you just said rightly, the law required, have been eliminated from the EPA.
So far, one person has resigned.
Well, I don't know how high it goes. I would certainly be launching an investigation. I think there is one.
Right.
I was told that some of the higher-ups were pushing to get changes that were not happening. So I would have a full investigation, determine who knew what when, and yes, people should be fired. How far up it went, I don't know. But as far as it goes, they should be relieved because they failed this city. But let me just add this, Anderson. This is not the only place where this kind of action is needed. We have a lot of communities right now in our country where the level of toxins in the water, including lead, are way above what anybody should tolerate. We have a higher rate of tested lead in people in Cleveland than in Flint. So I'm not satisfied with just doing everything we must do for Flint. I want to tackle this problem across the board. And if people know about it and they're not acting and they're in the government at any level, they should be forced to resign.
Senator Sanders, would President Sanders fire the head of the EPA?
President Sanders would fire anybody who knew about what was happening and did not act appropriately. And President Sanders would make the point that how does it happen in the wealthiest country in the history of the world? What are our priorities when, among others, Republicans today are fighting for hundreds of billions of dollars in tax breaks for the wealthiest people? How did we have so much money available to go to war in Iraq and spend trillions of dollars, but somehow not have enough money, not just for Flint? Secretary is right. There are communities all over this country. It's not just infrastructure, it is education. Detroit's public school system is collapsing.
Thank you, Senator.
Anderson, the bottom line is, and what my campaign is changing our national priorities. We need a government that works for all of us,
Thank you,
not
Senator.
just wealthy campaign contributors.
I want to go to Leanne Walters. This is Leanne Walters. She was one of the first people to report problems with the water in Flint. One of her twin boys stopped growing. Her daughter lost her hair. She says she's undecided and has a question for both of you to answer, but we'll start with Senator Sanders. Ms. Walters?
After my family, the city of Flint, and the children in D.C. were poisoned by lead, will you make a personal promise to me right now that as president in your first 100 days in office, you will make it a requirement that all public water systems must remove all lead service lines throughout the entire United States and notification made to the citizens that have said service lines?
I will make a personal promise to you that the EPA and the EPA director that I appoint will make sure that every water system in the United States of America is tested and that the people of those communities know the quality of the water that they are drinking, and that we are going to have a plan to rebuild water systems in this country that are unsafe for drinking.
Let me just point out, for accuracy's sake, there are 10 million lead service pipes delivering water to people all across this country tonight. Secretary Clinton?
Well, I agree completely. I want to go further, though. I want us to have an absolute commitment to getting rid of lead wherever it is, because it's not only in water systems, it's also in soil, and it's in lead paint that is found mostly in older homes. That's why 500,000 children today have lead in their bodies. So I want to do exactly what you said. We will commit to a priority to change the water systems, and we will commit within 5 years to remove lead from everywhere. We were making progress on this in the 1990s. I worked with then Senator Obama to get more money, more support, to do more to remove lead.
Thank you.
That has, unfortunately, been, in many ways, moved to a lower priority. I will elevate it, and I will do everything I can. Water, soil, and paint.
Thank you.
We're going to get rid of it.
Thank you, Secretary. I want to go to my colleague, Don Lemon.
Anderson, thank you very much. Secretary Clinton, tonight you call for the resignation or for Governor Snyder to be recalled. There are residents of this city who want to see criminal charges brought against those who are responsible. Do you think people should go to jail?
Well, that's going to be up to the legal system, Don. I mean, I can't, standing here, I don't have all the facts, but people should be held accountable wherever that leads. If it leads to resignation or recall, if you're in political office, if it leads to civil penalties, if it leads to criminal responsibility, there has to be an absolute accountability, and I will support whatever the outcome of those investigations are.
Senator Sanders, do you think people should go to jail?
Well, I agree. We can't sit up here. I can't sit up here and make judgment over whether or not somebody committed a criminal act. But I will tell you this, that after an investigation, if people, in fact, were found to have committed a criminal act, I talked to a mother. Imagine this for a second, a mother who had a bright 7-year-old gregarious girl doing well in school. 2 years later, that child is now in special education, intellectual capabilities significantly deteriorated. That is a crime against that child and the people of Flint. And clearly, people are going to have to be held accountable.
Thank you, Senator. Thank you, Secretary. I want to turn now to Bryn Mickle. He's the editor of the Flint Journal. He's our local partner in this debate, and he has our next question.
Bryn?
Secretary Clinton, it took this water crisis for politicians like yourselves to notice we are in a city in trouble. You've only both recently started talking about Flint, holding campaign events here in just the past few weeks. Secretary Clinton, you've even made the crisis the centerpiece of a new campaign ad. Why should the people of Flint believe that you aren't just using this crisis to score political points?
Well, I think because throughout my public career, I have been evening the odds for people in every way that I could. I started out with the Children's Defense Fund. I worked throughout my time as a young lawyer, as a person, an activist, certainly in Arkansas, then in the White House, to try to fix problems wherever I saw them. And this problem is one that is particularly outrageous and painful at the same time. So when I heard about it, I immediately sent people here to find out what was going on. It was almost unbelievable. We have this problem in other places, but we don't say that it was actually caused by decisions made by public officials in positions of authority, as this one was. Then when I talked to the mayor, I basically said, what can I do to help? Then when I came here and I met with some of the mothers and met their children and heard their stories, I'm just determined to do whatever I can. So I have put together resources from the private and philanthropic communities to help provide a bridge, because you've got to get the federal money, you've got to get the state money, but I'm going to do everything I can, and I will be with Flint all the way through this crisis in whatever capacity I am. And if I'm president, it will always be a priority for action from me.
And, Bryn has a follow-up.
Senator Sanders, what about you? Your first visit to Flint as a presidential candidate was just over a week ago. That's almost 5 months after the people here were told to stop drinking the water. What took you so long?
Well, first of all, it's not quite accurate. I was here longer before that. And I'll tell you what I did. What I did is meet very quietly in Detroit with parents and others who were impacted by this disaster. And the second thing that I did is hold a town meeting, which was as non-political as I could make it, for hundreds of people to tell me and the world through the media exactly what was happening here in Flint. I think the fear, and the legitimate fear of the people of Flint, is that at a certain point, the TV cameras and CNN is going to disappear. And then people are going to be left struggling in order to live in a safe and healthy community. All I can say is if you check my record, going back a long time, I have stood with those who are hurting. I have stood with those who have no money. And I have taken on virtually every powerful special interest in the United States of America. That's my record. I'm proud of it.
Thank you, Senator. This city is also facing a jobs crisis. 75% of Flint's manufacturing jobs have been lost in the last 25 years. In about the same amount of time, Michigan has lost 230,000 manufacturing jobs. I want to go to Tanisha Martin. She grew up here in Flint, but she now works in Detroit at the Shinola Watch Factory, which, as you know, is often held up as the blueprint for how to save American industry jobs. She says she's leaning towards Secretary Clinton, and she has a question for her.
A lot of members of my family worked in the auto industry here in Flint. That's ultimately what I wanted to do once I got out of school, but unfortunately, I was unable to get any one of the big three. And that's why I now reside at Shinola. If you're elected president, what are you going to do to convince factories to keep the jobs here in the United States instead of sending them overseas to other countries?
Secretary Clinton?
I'm going to do what I think will work, which is both carrots and sticks. And let me talk about the carrots. We're going to have a very clear set of proposals and incentives for manufacturing so that we change the way that companies think about making investments again in America. I have a comprehensive manufacturing plan that I will be implementing. We're also going to invest more in infrastructure, as we both have said. It's woefully under-resourced. That will put a lot of people to work. I want to do more to help small businesses. They are the source of 2/3 of our jobs. We've got to help them start and grow, particularly minority and women-owned small businesses. We need to do more to help create clean energy as a source of good jobs. But I'm also going to go after companies. You know, when a company decides to leave, like Nabisco is leaving, and they've gotten tax benefits from Chicago and Illinois to stay there, I'm going to claw back those benefits. They're going to have to pay them back if they're leaving a place that actually invested in them. I'm also going to go after companies like Johnson Controls in Wisconsin. They came and got part of the bailout because they were an auto parts supplier. Now they want to move some of their headquarters to Europe. They're going to have to pay an exit fee. We're going to stop this kind of job exporting, and we're going to start importing and growing jobs again in our country.
Senator Sanders, I'll let you. Yeah,
I am very glad, Anderson, that Secretary Clinton has discovered religion on this issue. But it's a little bit too late. Secretary Clinton supported virtually every one of these disastrous trade agreements written by corporate America. NAFTA, supported by the Secretary, cost us 800,000 jobs nationwide, tens of thousands of jobs in the Midwest. Permanent normal trade relations with China cost us millions of jobs. Look, I was on a picket line in the early 1990s against NAFTA because you didn't need a PhD in economics to understand that American workers should not be forced to compete against people in Mexico making 25 cents an hour. And the reason that I was one of the first, not one of the last, to be in opposition to the TPP is that American workers should not be forced to compete against people in Vietnam today making a minimum wage of 65 cents an hour. Look, what we have got to do is tell corporate America that they cannot continue to shut down. We've lost 60,000 factories since 2001. they're going to start having to, if I'm president, invest in this country, not in China, not in Mexico.